so much, Matt, for having us. And we really appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak with everyone today. We're super excited to show you OTIF Radar, like Matt mentioned. Just really quickly, for those of you who haven't heard of SupplyPike, we are a Fayetteville-based software company. So we're local, kind of hop, skip, jumping away from good old Walmart and Sam's Club. We've been around for about 5 years now, and our bread and butter and what we do every day is creating software solutions for Walmart and Sam's Club suppliers. So just really quickly to give you guys a little bit of context, we have three main products. The first is retail intelligence, so that's around sales and analytics, replenishment, forecasting, all that good stuff. Deductions Navigator, which focuses on deductions that you get from Walmart and Sam's Club. And then our last piece that we're here to talk about today is OTIF Radar. And that, of course, is to give you kind of a overview as well as a super zoomed in view of your OTIF scores at Walmart, which we know are, kind of a big buzzword for all the suppliers lately. So that's really us in a nutshell. We don't want to spend too much time boring you guys with details about SupplyPike, but I wanted to really quickly introduce Ryan Petty. So Ryan runs our OTIF team at SupplyPike. He knows more about OTIF than any human being should, and he will be the one that will be demoing OTIF Radar today. Our hope and goal is to kind of get you guys through the demo and maybe save about 4 or 5 minutes towards the end for answers and questions and all of that good stuff. And of course, you are more than welcome to reach out to us after our pitch today, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and step back and let Ryan take over.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining today. Just wanted to set up our OTIF app and kind of our approach to trying to help suppliers with this challenge. And one component was that we know that there are tons of data in Retail Link across different apps. And, I'm sure everyone here has gone into different apps to pull different information for different needs. And so a big part of what we try to do is stitch together data from multiple sources to give you a richer picture of what's going on. So the way we've done that with OTIF is we do, of course, have data from the OTIF app. We also combine data from the appointment scheduler app, where those delivery appointments with the DCs are scheduled. And then we also pull the request for routing. So when if you're collect and you're submitting routing requests for Walmart to come pick up the product, we're using that data as well to identify ship points and other information. And then lastly, we pull some item information from DSS so that you can have greater context into sort of item level performance for OTIF. And so that's sort of our background as far as how we get the data and put it together. I'm excited to show you that. And one other kind of data point is that, as some of you may know, Retail Link does not retain detailed OTIF data after a certain period of time. Their new app increased the amount to 13 weeks. But if you want to dig in or investigate or identify, kind of trends with longer term data, it's not possible in the Retail Link OTIF app. So another thing that we try to offer is a sort of permanent repository for this information so that it doesn't go away and you always have access to the details anytime you'd ever want to dig in. So with all of that ramble over, I will start to just show you the app, which I'm excited to do. And the way we're going to do this is we've got a couple of different companies to show you, one being prepaid and one collect in our demo company environments. And so we'll kind of switch between the two and let you see, whatever you happen to be, prepaid or collect or both, how it would look. So we're going to start out with a prepaid company, and then we'll sort of switch back and forth. So what we do here is, this is kind of our front page, our dashboard. And number one, you can see historical information, including your scores over time. And so this is a pretty basic trending chart, but you can see when you hover over past periods of time, you can see sort of the full breakdown. Zoom in a little bit. So it just gives you a very quick glance. The two different lines would be the two different OTIF metrics that a prepaid supplier is responsible for and may face fines for. And so for prepaid, that would be prepaid on time and in full. And so each of these lines are one of those metrics. You can view this by month or by week if you want to kind of get really granular and identify really specific dips in performance. Another thing that you can do, and that everyone on this call may be aware of, is that Walmart's OTIF program actually measures Walmart's accountability in their metrics. So when you see scores, a lot of times it's a combined score. But as a supplier, that's not what you're graded on in terms of fines. That Walmart actually removes their accountability out of the equation, and that may leave you with a different percentage score. And that's what gets compared to the goal, and that's what determines your fine amount. So we have a few places in our app that kind of highlights this difference in the combined score versus the supplier true score. And one of those is this toggle here of toggling to essentially exclude Walmart accountability. So if you just want to see, show me my true scores without Walmart's responsibility included, then you can quickly switch to that and see your true score that you were responsible for over time. And I'll show you another spot where we kind of show that, but on this trend graph, you do have the ability to quickly switch between combined or supplier score. Another view that you have is we pull out the OTIF fines over time. And so this is similar in sort of information over time. So you can see actual past OTIF fines. And again, the color relates to the metric. So in this case, the blue would be prepaid on time and the red is in full. One thing you can see here as well on the very end, Walmart has not issued January fines yet. And so what we do in our app is actually project fines before they occur. And that we use the calculation that Walmart applies for OTIF fines of 3% of the affected COGS. And so we present that to you as a supplier. So number one, you have insight into what kind of fines you may be facing. And also, if there's ever a scenario where you would want to potentially dispute that outcome, you have the knowledge of what you're facing to decide if it's worth it to try to go after that kind of dispute with Walmart on that OTIF fine. So anyways, this kind of information at the top of the dashboard is performance over time, your actual fines over time, projected fines. And then I'm going to move down this dashboard, and everything below these historical graphs is going to be based on your filters that you have that live throughout our app. And so we have the Walmart OTIF calendar and sort of all the weeks that correlate to their individual OTIF months. And so you can quickly in our app switch between looking at entire months at a time, or you can drill down to the individual weeks to look at performance by week. We also have vendor number filters. So if you have multiple 6 digits, you could switch between them. If you have multiple 9 digits, you can check or uncheck to basically include or exclude them. So that's available to you as well if you have multiple active 9-digit vendors. So everything that we show sort of below the historical line is going to be based on the filters that we have selected. And so we can see here again for January, Walmart's OTIF fines are not out for January. And so we show expected fines per metric here. And generally our calculations, if you're curious, are accurate down to about the penny. Usually if there's a difference, it's a rounding error and it may be a couple of pennies. But you know, these have proven to be really accurate in terms of knowing what is going to hit. And once they actually hit, matching up to our projections here.
And one
So
thing oh, sorry, Ryan. I
yeah,
just wanted to
please go ahead.
add one thing is these projections we have found are particularly powerful for our supplier teams, because, as you know, if you guys have tried to fight OTIF fines, typically what we have heard is, first and foremost, Walmart's official stance is that OTIF fines cannot be disputed. But what we have found is some of our suppliers are successful in fighting OTIF fines if they're able to do it before the fines are actually posted and invoiced. And so there is kind of a small-ish window between when a month closes and when the fines are invoiced. And if you don't have any visibility into what the potential or projected fines even are, it's hard to even go in and start the conversation. So these kind of projected fines that are, things that you can't really see using Walmart today, are kind of a nice first step, first ammo for you to start trying to fight those OTIF fines.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct on all fronts, Stacy. So, Walmart doesn't make it easy to reverse fines, but it is absolutely possible. It's happened in the past. We work with suppliers who have had very large fines waived, and so it can be done. And a lot of times in those cases where they've successfully disputed, it's a matter of pulling together information to tell a story. In our app, one of our aims is to help them tell that story with the data that we provide. So on these, sort of looking back at these metrics again, you can see the fines related to these metrics. You can also see your scores and how that compares to the 98% goals. I wanted to show as well a past time period. So if we look at a month like November, Walmart issued fines for that month. So when you look at a past month, it's going to show an actual fine amount. And this will match the actual fine that Walmart issued to you that period of time. And I also picked this month because it highlights a couple of things. I mentioned the combined score earlier, where Walmart includes their responsibility. So this is an example, this in full metric, the combined score is actually below 98% when Walmart's responsibility is included. And so that is shown to you for visibility's sake, but your true score that you get graded on, we kind of present front and center as the supplier score. And you'll see that that is actually above goal. So it's a huge difference here between, being a 1.5% below or 0.5% above could be the difference in thousands of dollars of fines. And so we try to make it clear what your true score is for any period of time, whether it's past or sort of current. You can always see your true score versus that combined score if Walmart had accountability. All right, so moving down, we kind of show some overall stats that if you've ever dug into the OTIF app and Retail Link, you're probably familiar with. Just some stats on kind of on time and early and late, and then the classic sort of OTIF waterfall accountability graph, where you can see the cases that were not compliant, what buckets they fell into, and whose accountability they were. So the blue would be Walmart accountability and the red is supplier. So just high level sort of stats here. But at the bottom of the page, you can also see for this time period, all of the individual non-compliant POs. And so by default, rather than show you all the POs, you probably don't care about the ones that you're not responsible for as a supplier. So we're just showing you supplier non-compliant POs by default, and it's broken out per metric. So if you want to see all the non-compliant on-time POs, that's what this list is. If you want to see all the short POs for in full, then you just select in full, and you can see you're sort of responsible for non-compliant POs. There's a lot of data in this table here, and number one thing we show, and if it's a past time period, we'll show you actual fine amounts that are related to each PO. And so if you wanted to quickly kind of sort this list and look at all the ones that impacted you the most, you could see all those POs very quickly. We also kind of arranged these columns to give you the most pertinent information for this metric, right up front and center. So you can quickly see what for on time PO list, what was the MABD, when did it actually arrive, when did the appointment get created, what was the appointment date for, who was the carrier that moved it. So you kind of have the full story of that PO of what happened with it, for quick analysis going through this list. You can do the same with in full. You can see, fines related to this metric, how many cases were short. If there's any cancellations, you would see data around that cancellation, the reason code, and all of these other data points as well. And you may be wondering, can I export that? And yes, you can. So in the top right corner, we've got exports for, you can kind of export this to a PDF, sort of executive summary document with all these graphs and metrics and projected fines. If you want to export the PO data, you can do it at the PO level or down to the line level. And then this vendor report is kind of a entire 6-digit report. So it just shows you your total fines, your total scores at the 6-digit level in Excel. So it's easy to use and add to other kind of reports. So lots of ways to get the data out. And again, you can go back as far as you want and pull that data out. I'm going to show you the collect side real quick. Let me see how we're doing on time. So, okay, 1:18, I'm moving fast. So on the collect side, it's very similar. The main difference is instead of on time, you've got collect ready shown here as the other metric, and it'll show you your score, your fine amount, all of that. And then when you go down to the bottom at the PO list, you can find the non-compliant POs for collect ready. And again, you can see actual fine amounts or projected fine amounts, and all the PO details of, what was the order date, when did it get confirmed, what ship point did it ship out of. So all of that is there. So I'm going to pivot to our analysis tab here. And this is where we try to break down OTIF performance from a lot of different perspectives. So if you're prepaid, you may be using a multitude of carriers. And if so, an important thing to do is to evaluate each carrier on their own. And so what we have done is grouped OTIF performance by carrier in this analysis page. And so you can see each carrier that actually moved cases for a time period, their overall on-time percentage based on the cases that they actually delivered. You can see sort of the high-level counts of, how many they delivered, how many were late or early versus on time. And then you can also see how much of your fine came from the POs that they delivered. So this is a very useful point of reference when having conversations with these carriers and figuring out which ones are dragging your score down. Another thing that you can do is drill in to any one of these carriers and pull up an OTIF scorecard for this carrier. And this entire scorecard page works and looks exactly like the front dashboard, but the difference is that everything here is based only on the POs that this carrier moved. So this is an overall OTIF report just for the POs that this carrier delivered. So you can see their on-time percentage over time. You can see how much in fines they contributed to over time, again, with just the POs that they moved. And so this is a really helpful talking point when having conversations with these carriers. You got their individual POs that they moved that were not compliant that's easily exportable. So essentially you can create a very robust performance report with this carrier that can easily be shared with them so that you can have conversations to fix issues. So Another area that might be helpful on the prepaid side is you can also view performance by DC. Sometimes suppliers may struggle with particular lanes. And so if you wanted to see your on-time scores over time to each DC, then you can very quickly do that. Again, you could see how much of your overall on-time fines related to the POs going to individual DCs. You could dive into a particular DC and see its score over time to figure out, is this a trending issue that I'm struggling with this lane, or was this kind of just a one-time issue that's being ironed out, for example? So it's another way to break down the on-time score in this case, and really dig into root cause and figure out, where is the majority of my issue coming from. So I'm going to switch to our collect company and show you a couple of other ways to view the data. First, I'll show you our items analysis. So just like carriers and DCs, you can also view performance by item. And a lot of times you may want to look at fill rate by item, for example, and this is true of prepaid or collect suppliers. So you could very quickly see your OTIF fill rate for every item that you're shipping. You can see it's sort of in full percentage. Again, how much of the in full fine related to this item's cases. You can drill in, just like we did with carriers and DCs, into a particular item and see this item's OTIF performance over time. And again, get to the sort of granular level where you're looking at the individual PO lines that this item was on. So it's a really quick way to assess all your items and then deep dive if you want to find out more for that particular one. And just 2 more pages, and then I think we can take questions, or Stacy can add some input. But another area that may be helpful to view performance by, especially on the collect side, is performance by ship point. And so we call those origins here. But on the origins page, you can compare your performance, your scores, from each ship point. So especially if you're using third-party warehouses or even your own warehouses, this lets you see your scores from each location. So if you're having fill rate issues from one location versus another, you can very clearly see that. Or if you're having problems with Walmart trucks showing up to a certain location, you can see your collect ready score by ship point across all of your ship points. And then if you want, you can, again, dive deep into that ship point to see performance over time, get to the individual non-compliant POs. And we definitely have suppliers who, evaluate their warehouses or third-party warehouses and use this data to kind of highlight issues and drive a conversation to fix them.
Yeah, just to add to, sorry, Ryan, just to add to that, we've seen some of our teams, exactly like Ryan is saying, use these to sometimes even negotiate better rates with their carriers or 3PLs. In some cases, we've even seen them pass fines along. If, for example, you guys are like, hey, I know I'm providing enough product, but for whatever reason, we're not shipping in full, or we're not shipping on time, or we're not setting appointments when we should. We have seen some of our teams, like I said, actually pass fines along. And the fact that we can kind of break down by ship point, by carrier, what each kind of fine, what each one is responsible for fines wise, helps really make that conversation super data driven and a lot easier to figure out.
Yep, well said. And so really the last thing to look at is if you do have multiple 9 digits that you're using, another way to break down the performance, you can use our vendor number analysis page where you can see your scores, your fine amounts per 9-digit vendor number, and quickly compare them all. And if you wanted, then you could drill into individual ones and see its performance over time. That 9 digits sort of overall scores and individual non-compliant POs. So just another way to break it down. We are pretty soon going to be adding a view of performance by department, which is another way that may be helpful to you to figure out, where's the majority of your issues coming from. And so we're excited about that, and we're continuing to add features. And I'll stop and see if there's any questions here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Ryan, so much. So we do have a whole bunch of questions. So we've got 4 minutes. It's going to be rapid fire. So could you summarize really quickly, Ryan? So one of the questions is, comparing our app versus what's available in Retail Link. Just really quickly, maybe what are some of the top 2 or 3 differences on what they can get from us rather than just RL?
Yeah. So number one, projected fines. You won't find projected fine totals in Retail Link. They do give you some kind of affected COGS that they show regardless of whether you're above or below 98%. You have to do some math on that and some checking of the scores to figure out if that's going to apply. So we do that. Number one is project fines. We also, everything kind of in this analysis area where you can compare performance across all of these views and dive into those scorecards, you're definitely not going to find that level of detail in Retail Link. And so for, I think, working with third parties, as well as just doing root cause analysis, it's just a lot easier here compared to what you kind of get out of Retail Link, which is a lot of data, but then you kind of have to do a fair bit of digging to make sense of it. And then we pull data from not just the OTIF app, but also appointment scheduler, request for routing, DSS, and that allows us to tell a richer OTIF story than what you're going to get in the OTIF app and Retail Link.
Awesome. So we've got another question. How much does this cost? Which is a very fair, very great question. So we are actually, guys, we post our pricing on the SupplyPike.com website. So if you just go to SupplyPike.com/pricing, you should be able to see that. Ryan can't spell our company name. That's fine.
Oh, no.
But basically, the pricing scales based on the size of your business to Walmart. So we do charge basically a single monthly flat fee. So you can see there's a slider here that goes up and down. So it'll basically, tell you what bucket you fit into, and then you should be able to see the pricing right there. Just really quickly, there are no setup fees, no integration costs. We don't charge per user or seat or anything like that. You have access to, premium support and training from our team in Northwest Arkansas. We're very proud of the fact that we don't outsource that. So yeah, you can very quickly, like I said, just go up, kind of pick whatever bucket you fall into with the slider, and you should be able to see what pricing you have just on the spot. So that is a great question. And then we also got a question of, do you have a demo I can send to my team? So great question. And kind of 2 parts of that. So first, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I believe this recording will be made available to the attendees. So you can absolutely, oh, perfect.
That's correct. No, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so first, you are more than welcome to share this recording out with your team. Please do. But also, I wanted to call out that we do have a 2-week free trial available through SupplyPike, where we will actually pull your live data into the app. So you'll be able to see kind of everything that Ryan showed you today, top level, as well as a full deep dive analysis. And kind of what comes along with that free trial is, number one, of course, you'll have full access to the app. So you'll be able to click around, dig into things, do exports, take screenshots, whatever it is you need to do. But then you'll also have access to our team again at SupplyPike. So Ryan and myself will sit down with you, kind of walk through the insights that we're seeing. Feel free to use us as a sounding board. We know it takes a village to be a supplier to Walmart, and we are happy to be part of that village for you. Awesome. And then, so another question we have is, I have more questions. How can I contact you? That is a great question. So we will actually be sending a follow-up note after our webinar is done today. with a lot of details around the pricing, how to start a trial, and all of that good stuff. And we'll also, of course, include our contact information. If you want to get in contact with us directly, of course, you're more than welcome to email either Ryan or myself, just ryan@supplypike.com or stacy.tan@supplypike.com. In case you are impatient and don't want to wait for that email, we totally understand. Yeah, so I think we have time for one more question. Just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think we have, so how exactly do you guys gather all of the data that is seen here? And Ryan, could you maybe shed a little light on that? And yeah.
Yeah, so we have automated services. You never have to, email data to us or your account, log in or anything like that. Everything is done automatic, and then we have automatic processes on the weekends for OTIF that run. Walmart updates their OTIF data on Sundays, and we do as well on Sunday evenings, so that every Monday when you come in, it's automatically up to date. You don't have to lift a finger. It's all there.
Awesome. Well, guys, I know we're a couple of minutes over, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We really appreciate, everyone that was on the call today, and Matt, you as well. Thank you for having us as always. Like I said, we will be sending out follow-up information once we are done with the call today, and looking forward to getting more questions from you guys, and hopefully working with you soon.